Law and Order Legacies. We've done Revenge. We're now going to do Home to Roost. Aha.
In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories.
Court Street. 266 Court Street.
Coming, sweetie.
Aww.
Shh. Mommy's here, Noah. Neil? That you?
Uh-oh.
Did you see anything when you opened the door? Anybody on the street? A car?
No, nothing at all. At first I thought it was some kind of prank, but then I looked down and saw Neil.
Okay, yeah, that's all the questions for now.
Some prank.
Yeah, well, sounds like he was a real cut-up.
Was he stabbed then? I haven't got the music playing. You would have the music if you played it yourself.
What's that, goulash? Get it out of here, Ray, for God's sake.
What's the matter? Doesn't smell too bad to me.
No, it smells too good. Julia's got me on a health food diet. She's got this crazy idea high blood pressure's a bad thing.
Sounds like a real nut. I give it 3 weeks.
The diet or Julia?
Both.
Rogers just dropped off the report on Neil Jenson. Exsanguination.
Poor guy bled to death.
Well, that would explain all the red stuff.
Lieutenant Van Buren can supply valuable information about the case. Ask her about the victim's wounds by selecting that topic button. Okay. Victim's wounds.
How many cuts we talking about?
Over a dozen, but most of them are superficial.
That's a lot.
Victim bled out from a deep laceration to the femoral artery.
Ah, now was that by an accident? Do the wounds match the cause of death? They certainly do. How does it match? Van Buren reported the cause of death was extermination or death by dying. Cause of death was by anyone's guess. Exsanguination or fatal loss of blood. Exsanguination or fatal loss of oxygen. It's loss of blood. Right, thank you very much. Lieutenant Van Buren can help reveal more information about Neil Jenson's murder. Ask about any of these new topics. Let's have, well, the time of death was at the door, so...
What do we know about the weapon? Switchblade, maybe?
Right length, but Rogers says it was curved, like a scythe.
Our victim was done in by a midget Grim Reaper.
Could be a fishing knife, I suppose, or... What else could have a curve on it?
Anything we can use to ID the perp?
No fingerprints, but it appears some of the blood on Jenson's clothes wasn't his own.
Our victim got in a few
Ah.
good jabs before he went down, huh? What does the lab have to say?
Results aren't back yet. Any minute now.
Perhaps the killer cut himself while he was stabbing. That tends to happen when their hand slips from the handle.
Time of death?
4:17 a.m. Apparently, the guy was still alive when his wife found him, but just barely. Blood trail leads down to the curb, then disappears.
Well, at least he got to die at home. When did he get wounded?
Around 2.
Slow bleeder.
Well, we've all got problems.
So he was bleeding for 2 hours? That's a long time to bleed. How do you know? It took him an hour for him to bleed out. It took him 2 hours to bleed out.
Van Buren. Uh-huh. Really? How do they... Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Elliptical and nucleated. Got it.
What?
Well, let us know if you find out anything else. That was the lab.
Elliptical and nucleated?
The red blood cells? Turns out it's not human. It's bird blood.
What kind of bird?
A dead one, I'm guessing.
A victim was stabbed with a pelican.
So it was... oh, excuse me. Stabbed with a curved blade, could be a beak. Jensen residence.
Hold off a minute, Lenny. I got something here.
What?
The Jensen's nanny. She's waiting to catch a bus, but I don't see it coming yet.
Then let's not waste any time.
Mind if we ask you a few questions?
Well, we know she's the maid. Let's get straight onto the
How
marriage.
did Mr. and Mrs. Jensen get along? Did they fight?
All married couples fight sometimes, I guess. I don't plan to get married myself.
I used to say that too.
Yeah, I said it a bunch. Yeah, never did me any good.
But not everybody fights in front of the nanny.
Press it further, I think. Why? No. Fighting in front of the nanny could be a sign of a serious marital tension. When your arguments spill out in public, even if it's in front of people living in the house, there's got to be a problem. So what was the fighting
What
about?
did Mr. and Mrs. Jensen fight about when they fought?
Ah, the usual. Money. I guess he was better at spending it than making it, and new babies cost a lot. He was pretty pissed when she cut off his allowance.
Allowance?
His allowance?
How old was he, 12?
Hey, don't tell her I told you that. I want the nice as it is.
Could be their trouble, yes. Which conclusion is not supported? Tension between her and Mrs. Jensen? With tension between Mr. and Mrs. Jensen's fault about the baby, fault about money. Ah! Did I misread that? Let's do the relationship
Did you
now.
know Neil Jenson very well?
You mean, were we lovers?
That wasn't where I was going.
But since you
anyway.
brought the subject up,
No, he was my employer, that's all. I liked him, though. We had a lot of good talks. He was interested in stuff, you know? Ideas. He was really interested when he found out I was a Wiccan. He liked to ask questions.
Does this rule her out? No. Nobody's ruled out yet. It's too early. Why can't you rule her out? They said they found a young woman's fingerprints on the body. I don't remember that. They haven't time to check her alibi yet. Good job, detective. New topics. Wow. Wiccans. Yeah.
Wiccans, don't they sometimes sacrifice animals? Pigeons? Chickens?
No, we in the Wiccan community revere life in all its forms. God, people have such ignorant ideas.
Yeah.
Nice going.
Hey, not every hunch pans out.
My sister is a Wiccan. You found a red herring. Let's go to the alibi.
Where were you Wednesday morning at 2 a.m.?
In bed. Where else?
Here?
I only work days. I live in Bedford-Stuy. Check with my parents if you don't believe me.
Okay. Plausible alibi, yeah. Especially if it's a small apartment. She ain't got her own room or anything where she works. Subject says she lives with her parents. Be easy to confirm. Looks honest. No one from Bed-Stuy would lie about their whereabouts. I have no idea about that. let's, they could easily be confirmed. So they could lie to protect her, but
Here's my bus. Gotta run.
see.
We got all we need out of her. Come on, let's talk to the widow.
Wrap it up. We certainly will.
I'm sorry I wasn't much help to you last night.
We quite understand, Mrs. Jensen. You've been through a terrible shock.
Please call me Ellie. And I apologize again in advance. I'm going to have to cut this short when Noah wakes up at 3:55.
You've got him on a schedule?
It's the other way around. Wait and see. You could set your watch by him.
Let's think. Let's talk about the Neil and money.
Your husband was a writer.
Oh, maybe I've read some of his work.
I doubt it. I didn't mean that the way it sounds. You don't by any chance subscribe to the Metamodernist Quarterly.
So your husband wasn't about to become the next John Grisham.
Wasn't that difficult for you? I mean, him not bringing in a regular income?
We got by. I believed in my husband's work, Detective, and thankfully my income was sufficient to support both of us comfortably.
Well,
I'm
didn't he have a
principal
little
at
part-time
PS84.
job so he can indulge in his little hobby? Right, missing personal item. I don't remember that. Neil and the nanny, Neil's history. Where was Neil last night?
Do you know where your husband went last night?
I have no idea. He left the house around 9, said he'd be back late, and I shouldn't worry.
But you did.
Of course, but no more than usual. This was par for the course for Neil. When he's working on a new story, he'll go off on research expeditions. Often at strange hours, sometimes for days at a time, and he never talks about it till he has a rough draft on paper. Doesn't want anyone to influence his thought process.
Yeah. Does her statement contradict time of death? Nope. As you know, Ellie said Neil left at 2 PM and he died at 9. Said at 9 and he died at 4. What? And he said that left at 9 and he died... What? And he was vague. Crumbs, what was it? He died at 2, didn't he? So... give him more time to be attacked. More than enough. Ah! Oh, I've got one crossed out. Neil's history. I think we'll
Anything
get
you
on
can
that.
tell me about your husband's background?
He had a poker problem in college when I first knew him.
There we go.
Junior year, I had to cover his student fees because he'd gambled away the money his parents gave him.
Which is why
Of course, that was
he had
15
an
years ago, but
allowance.
I worried maybe he was falling back into old habits.
So that's why he was on an allowance. Let's do the spending.
Any
habits.
idea what Mr. Jensen wasted your money on?
God knows.
Wasted.
Like I said, he was very closed-mouthed about his research expeditions.
Well, not really. Nanny already indicated that Neil had a gambling problem. Nanny was definitely blackmailed. No. Ellie had already stated she felt his gambling habits were back. Ellie is a school principal, therefore we can trust her testimony. I think... No! No!
Be honest.
Any chance it was something illegal? Drugs, gambling, or maybe he was being blackmailed? What's that noise?
Our chickens, Henny, Penny, and Maxine.
In the apartment?
You've never seen chickens in New York?
Well, sure, but they usually come with biscuits and a side of mashed potatoes.
You're behind the times, officers. Urban farming is the wave of the future. Fosters a connection to the earth. Plus, once you've tasted homegrown eggs, those watery factory-produced things just make you gag.
So you're not in an apartment then, you're in a house? Well, they did say bird blood, but a chicken wouldn't have a beak or claw or talon long enough to kill, but let's get onto the blood.
One of the things we're trying to make sense of here, Ellie, is we found avian blood on your husband's clothes.
Avian?
Bird blood.
I know what the word means. It's just
Alright.
very odd.
That's what we thought.
Maybe your husband slaughtered a chicken for dinner last night?
I don't think so. He doesn't take much of an interest in them, to be honest. They're more my thing. He only helps out when it's something I can't bring myself to do.
Ugh. Okay, you only look after some of the chicken personal way of life then. Yeah, you've got to do it all or nothing. Let's do Neil and the nanny, get off the chickens
Your
for a
nanny.
minute.
Ada Marie Velasquez.
This may be an indelicate question, but your husband never...
Neil liked to flirt, but he wasn't a cheater.
You're sure?
I know what goes on in my house. I'm sure of that. And I installed a nanny cam to make extra sure.
Oh, so you weren't quite sure what goes on in your house then?
We heard something about you cutting off your husband's allowance.
No.
Your wife went, no. She hesitated. His wallet was empty, no. She already, yeah. Already stated that Ellie cut off her husband. Nanny said Neil was interested in divorce. I can't remember the maid's blooming name now.
Who told you that? Ada Marie?
We're not at liberty to divulge.
She's alluding to the fact that I took Neil's name off the savings account last week. I didn't enjoy doing it, but
Yes?
Gambling.
when Neil was in research mode, he spent money. Well, recklessly. He'd get so caught up in his work, prudence would go out the window. I used to put up with it, but new babies are expensive.
Yeah. Right. Let's go back to Neil and the chickens.
About those chickens of yours, what do you mean when you say Neil would do the things you couldn't bring yourself to do?
Well, raccoons got one once, and he cleaned up the mess, but that was ages ago. And I made him get rid of Roger last July.
Roger?
A cockerel. He started out as Rebecca.
Mm.
See, keeping hens is perfectly legal in New York City, but
Yeah.
it's against the law to keep a rooster.
They're
Makes sense to me.
noisy.
We raised our brood from chicks. And of course all chicks look alike. They're sexed before they're sold, but the process isn't foolproof. We bought 4 hens.
And one of them turned out to be a rooster.
Right. By the time we found out she was a he, I had grown fond of him. I didn't have the heart to get rid of him myself, so I made Neil do it. But
Oh,
like I said, that
right.
was practically a year ago.
Do you know what he did with it?
He took it back to the farm we got it from, in New Jersey. Cora's Cluckers. I can give you their number. They know us there.
You mean he got halfway then just slung it out the window?
Was your husband missing anything when you found him? Any valuable personal items?
His wallet,
Was on him. $8 and a MasterCard.
his Rolex.
Did Van Buren ever mention a Rolex? No. She did not.
No Rolex on the body.
I gave it to him on our 10-year anniversary. It's engraved.
Well,
He always
pawned it.
wore it.
Gambled it?
There goes the alarm.
$3.55.
What'd I tell you? Right on schedule.
Yeah, I think we've wrapped up this one.